In the heart of St. Louis, a group of teenagers had formed an unlikely bond over their shared love of cars. But not just any cars, these kids had a penchant for stolen ones. They had all grown up fast, too fast, in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and the lure of easy money was strong. They called themselves the GTA Crew, named after their favorite video game, and they had become notorious in the city for their daring heists. The crew was made up of 5 members. There was Rico, the leader and mastermind, who had an uncanny ability to hotwire any car in under a minute. Jake, the lookout, with eyes as sharp as a hawk and a sixth sense for danger. Mia, the wheelwoman, who could drift around corners like she was on rails. Tony, the muscle, who kept the crew safe with his quick fists and quicker temper. And finally, there was Lily, the newest member, who was still learning the ropes but had an undeniable passion for all things automotive. They spent their days cruising the streets in their latest acquisition, a sleek black Dodge Challenger, and their nights planning their next job. They were always one step ahead of the law, or so they thought. But when a rival gang starts to make trouble and a mysterious figure from their past resurfaces, the GTA Crew finds themselves in the crosshairs of a dangerous game. As Rico lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. But what? And would the GTA Crew be ready for it? Only time would tell. What's the plan, Rico? Jake asked, as the crew gathered in their hideout. What's our next move? Rico looked around at his friends, his family, and took a deep breath. We're gonna take back our city, he said, a determined look in his eyes. We're gonna show them who's boss. And we're gonna do it in style. The question was, would they be able to pull it off? Only time would tell. The game was on. As the GTA Crew began to execute their plan to take back the streets of St. Louis, Rico knew that they had to be careful. They had made a lot of enemies along the way, and he didn't want anyone getting hurt. But as they say, your friends not my friends and my friends not yours. Rico had always been the one to make the tough decisions, and he knew that not everyone in the crew agreed with his methods. Mia, in particular, had been butting heads with Rico lately. She was tired of always being the wheelwoman, never getting a chance to drive the really fast cars. And she was tired of Rico's reckless decisions, like stealing from the wrong people. But despite their differences, Rico knew that Mia was a valuable member of the crew, and he couldn't imagine doing this without her. But fate had other plans. As Rico and Jake were boosting a BMW M3 from a valet stand, they were ambushed by a rival gang. Jake managed to escape, but Rico wasn't so lucky. He took a bullet to the leg and went down hard. The rival gang took off with the BMW, leaving Rico bleeding out on the pavement. Jake, Tony and Lily were devastated when they heard the news. They knew they had to get Rico to a hospital, but they also knew that the police would be looking for them. They had to think fast. Tony suggested they take Rico to a secluded cabin in the woods that his cousin owned, where they could tend to his wounds and figure out their next move. As they drove through the city, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. He kept looking in the rear mirror, but he didn't see anything. That's on, weaving in and out of traffic as they tried to lose the police. But they were boxed in, and before they knew it, they were surrounded. Jake, Tony and Lily were arrested and taken into custody. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Rico was regaining consciousness. He was in agony, but he knew he had to keep moving. He managed to crawl to the phone and dial 911. But before he could say anything, the line went dead. That's when he heard the footsteps. Rico grabbed a nearby fireplace poker and swung it blindly, connecting with something solid. He heard a groan and then silence. He waited a few moments, listening, but he didn't hear anything else. He slowly made his way to the door and peered outside. That's when he saw her, Mia, tied to a tree, gagged and crying. Rico rushed to her side and untied her. She threw herself into his arms, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, Rico," she said. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Rico held her close, his heart aching. He knew he had to get her to safety. But how? They were in the middle of nowhere, with no car, no phone, and no way to call for help. As they stood there, trying to figure out their next move, they heard the sound of a car approaching. Rico grabbed Mia's hand and they ran, hiding in the woods as the car pulled up to the cabin. It was Jake, Tony and Lily, who had managed to escape from the police station and had come to rescue Rico and Mia. Together, they all made their way back to the city, where they laid low for a while, regrouping and planning their next move. But Rico knew that this was far from over. The rival gang was still out there, and they would stop at nothing to take revenge. Rico, Mia, Jake, Tony and Lily would have to be ready for anything if they wanted to make it out alive. In the end, Rico realized that the most important lesson he learned was that your friends not my friends and my friends not yours doesn't matter when it comes to loyalty and trust. You can always count on your real friends and they will always have your back. As the GTA crew drove off into the night, Rico couldn't help but think that this was only the beginning. They were a family, and they would stick together no matter what. The game was far from over.